The quiet night over the desert was interrupted by an unnatural shimmering glow that stretched across the sky, casting shadows where none should exist. Dr. Lyanna Hayes, a leading astrobiologist, stood breathless at the edge of the observatory, her eyes fixed on the foreign lights. For years, she dreamed of this moment. First contact with an extraterrestrial species, but not like this. Not without any forewarning or preparation. This wasn't the carefully planned exchange humanity had envisioned. It was something unexpected, raw, and possibly dangerous. As the lights intensified, Lyanna's heart raced. The once distant shapes now revealed themselves. A colossal, ethereal ship hung silently above, as if observing Earth with a quiet, almost predatory curiosity. The sight filled her with a mix of awe and dread. She barely had time to register the details of the sleek alien vessel before a beam of light enveloped her, tugging at her every cell. The world around her blurred, her senses distorted, and within seconds she found herself in an unfamiliar, cold environment. Lyanna stumbled as her surroundings solidified. She was no longer on Earth, but in a vast, luminescent chamber aboard the alien ship. The walls around her pulsed with a soft, eerie glow, casting elongated shadows. The air was dense and warm, with a fragrance that reminded her of lavender mingled with metallic undertones. Just as she steadied herself, a voice, melodic yet chilling, echoed throughout the chamber. "Human, welcome aboard. You are in the presence of Princess Zora of the Onar Dominion." Lyanna turned, her breath catching as she beheld the alien figure. Princess Zora was taller than any human, her skin shimmering like liquid silver under the pulsing lights, her eyes a deep, hypnotic blue that seemed to peer into the depths of Lyanna's soul. Despite her ethereal beauty, there was something cold, calculating, about the princess. Lyanna could feel it. She wasn't here as a guest. She was here as an object of curiosity, possibly even an unwilling participant in some grand alien experiment. "You have been chosen." Princess Zora's voice resonated, filling the chamber and sending a chill down Lyanna's spine. "Chosen? For what?" Lyanna stammered, her mind racing with 1,000 questions and fears. Princess Zora took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. "To live among us, to become a companion to my daughter, Princess Alia. She has shown curiosity towards your kind. You will be her guide to understanding humanity." The words hung in the air, their implications slowly sinking in. This wasn't just an alien encounter, it was an assignment, a duty thrust upon her without consent. She wasn't simply a scientist now, she was an envoy for all of humanity, forced into a role with unknown expectations and a potentially dangerous alien princess. A spark of defiance lit within her. She wasn't going to be an idle specimen. "And if I refuse?" she challenged, lifting her chin in quiet defiance. A faint smile curved on Zora's lips, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Refusal is not an option, human. Your compliance is essential." Suddenly, an image flickered in the air between them, a hologram of Earth, small and vulnerable against the darkness of space, as if to remind her of what was at stake. Lyanna felt her resolve falter for a brief moment. They held the power here, not her. And with Earth's image so fragile before her, she knew her choices were limited. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Then I'll do what you ask, but I expect respect in return." Princess Zora inclined her head, a spark of approval glimmering in her alien gaze. "Wise decision, Dr. Hayes. Come, let us not keep my daughter waiting." With a slight gesture, the chamber walls seemed to shift and reconfigure, leading Lyanna down a corridor of shifting lights and sounds. Her heart raced with a strange mix of fear and curiosity. Each step she took was a step into the unknown, into a world where she was the lone human voice among the enigmatic and possibly dangerous Onar. But deep down, she knew that every decision she made from now on held the weight of humanity's fate. As she followed Princess Zora into the depths of the alien ship, her mind raced with questions and strategies. This was her chance to learn, to understand this alien civilization, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to protect Earth from whatever intentions they held. She didn't know if she could trust Princess Zora or her daughter, but she was determined to survive, to adapt, and to ensure that humanity would be seen as more than a mere curiosity. The game had begun, and she was ready to play. The corridor twisted and shifted, as if alive, adapting to their every step. Each wall glistened with an otherworldly, translucent sheen that seemed to breathe, pulsing with colors and strange symbols that Lyanna could barely process. With each step, she felt a mounting sense of awe and dread, knowing that she was about to meet the young alien princess, the one she was supposed to guide in understanding humanity. In her heart, though, she wondered just how much understanding truly meant in the eyes of the owner. Princess Zora halted before a grand doorway, sculpted from a dark, glassy material that shimmered in rainbow hues as it recognized her presence. It slid open with a soft hum, revealing an immense chamber filled with objects that seemed both decorative and functional, like artifacts from a dozen distant worlds. In the center of the room, amidst what looked like bioluminescent plants and hovering holograms, stood a slender figure, gazing out a vast, transparent wall that revealed the swirling cosmos beyond. Princess Ilia turned at the sound of their footsteps, her expression one of sharp curiosity and unmistakable youth. Unlike her mother's imposing demeanor, there was something softer, almost innocent, in Ilia's eyes. Yet Lyanna saw an intensity there that reminded her of the young scientists she'd mentored on Earth, hungry to learn, eager to test boundaries. Ilia's skin glistened with a faint, iridescent glow, her silver-blue eyes shifting colors as she looked at Lyanna, her interest immediate and consuming. "Mother," Ilia said, her voice a silken melody with a trace of something restless. "Is this the human?" "Yes, daughter," Zara replied, her voice gentle but firm. "This is Dr. Lyanna Hayes. She is here to teach you about her kind and to help bridge the gaps between our worlds." Ilia took a step closer, her gaze never leaving Lyanna's. She circled her slowly, observing her as if trying to decode every aspect of her appearance. Lyanna could feel the weight of Ilia's scrutiny, the sharpness of her curiosity. The alien princess was assessing her, not just as a representative of humanity, but as an individual. "Your form is delicate," Ilia murmured, her expression thoughtful. "Fragile, even. Yet, I sense strength in you. A resilience I didn't expect." Lyanna straightened, meeting Ilia's gaze with a steady look. "Humanity may look fragile to you, princess, but our strength is in our minds and our adaptability. We've thrived in environments that constantly change and challenge us." Ilia's eyes sparkled, intrigued by Lyanna's response. "Adaptability. Such an intriguing trait. We honor our bred for perfection, each of us designed for our roles. But you humans, you evolve through struggle, through imperfection. Fascinating." Lyanna couldn't help but feel a pang of pride. In that moment, she realized that this young princess didn't just want to learn. She wanted to understand what made humanity unique, what allowed them to endure. This curiosity could be an advantage if Lyanna played her cards right. Princess Zara spoke again, her tone an odd mix of affection and caution. "Remember, Ilia, Dr. Hayes is not a mere specimen. She represents a civilization, one that may one day become part of our dominion, or become our adversary." Lyanna's pulse quickened at the unspoken threat. She knew this was no idle observation. It was a warning, both to her and to Ilia. Whatever happened here would impact more than just her fate. It could shape the future of her entire species. Ilia nodded, though her gaze lingered on Lyanna, absorbing every word. "I understand, Mother. But if we are to truly understand humans, then Dr. Hayes and I must be free to engage, without constraint." Princess Zora's gaze flickered, an unreadable expression crossing her features. Finally, she nodded. "Very well. Dr. Hayes, you will be assigned quarters adjacent to Ilia's chambers. You may explore the ship and interact with our culture as much as you wish, but remember, your behavior reflects upon your world." Lyanna nodded, acknowledging the weight of Zora's words. She was being given a strange kind of freedom, one that came with invisible chains. Still, this was more than she'd expected. Perhaps she could learn from them, observe their ways, and find a means to protect Earth should it come to that. As Zora departed, the chamber felt different, less foreboding, yet filled with an expectant silence. Ilya approached her, a hint of excitement in her gaze. "Dr. Hayes, may I call you Lyanna?" A faint smile touched Lyanna's lips. "Of course." Ilya's curiosity was immediate. "Then tell me, Lyanna, what drives humans? Why do you create, dream, fight, and love with such intensity? I've studied your kind, but I still don't understand these passions." The tests went on, each setting more challenging than the last. At one point, the air grew thin, almost devoid of oxygen, forcing Lyanna to take shallow, rapid breaths. Another sequence increased the gravitational pressure, weighing down on her chest and limbs until every movement felt like a monumental task. But Lyanna refused to give in, her resilience fueled by a stubborn pride. She had to prove that humanity's strength was more than just a word. Finally, the simulations ceased, and the pod opened. Lyanna stumbled out, her body aching, her breaths shallow, but her resolve unshaken. She looked up to find Ilya watching her with wide, fascinated eyes. "You endured, all of it," Ilya murmured, a hint of admiration lacing her tone. "Even when your body was pushed to the limit, you did not falter." Lyanna managed a weary smile. "Humans don't give up easily. We adapt. We survive." A flicker of understanding passed over Ilya's face, as if some small part of humanity's spirit had finally reached her. She led Lyanna to a resting area, where a soothing bioluminescent light washed over her, restoring some of her energy. For a moment, they sat in silence, the hum of the ship the only sound between them. After a while, Ilya broke the silence. "Your species fascinates me more with each passing day. We honor our engineered for perfection, for resilience, but you achieve it through sheer will. There is something in that which I cannot explain. Perhaps that's what makes us different." Lyanna replied gently. "Our strength doesn't come from design. It comes from choice, from the desire to overcome, even when the odds are against us." Ilya nodded slowly, her gaze thoughtful. "Tell me, Lyanna, do you think that same resilience could extend beyond survival? Could it lead to understanding, connection?" The question took Lyanna by surprise, but she answered truthfully. "Yes, I believe that the ability to endure, to overcome, is what allows us to connect deeply with others. It's how we learn empathy, how we find common ground even in our differences." Ilya's gaze softened, and for the first time, Lyanna sensed a vulnerability in the young princess. "I have not known such connections. Here, in the Dominion, we are united, but we lack this empathy you describe. I wonder if perhaps it is something we have lost in our pursuit of perfection." Lyanna's heart stirred with sympathy. She could see it now, the cracks in Ilya's flawless exterior, the longing for something more. Perhaps the Honor were not as invincible as they appeared, and perhaps in their search for understanding, they might find themselves as vulnerable as humanity in some ways. "You can still learn, Ilya," she said softly. "Empathy isn't born, it's cultivated. It takes time, patience, and a willingness to open yourself to others." Ilya's expression was pensive, her gaze fixed on Lyanna with an intensity that was almost painful. "Then show me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Teach me what it means to connect, to understand." In that moment, Lyanna realized that her mission had shifted. She was no longer just a guide or a specimen. She was a teacher, a bridge between two worlds. And in Ilya's plea, she saw an opportunity to change more than just the princess's perception. She could perhaps change the course of an entire civilization. As they sat together, a silent understanding passed between them. Lyanna knew the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, misunderstandings, and perhaps even danger. But she also knew that for the first time, there was a real chance for unity. Together, they would learn. Together, they would grow. And maybe, just maybe, they could build a future where both humanity and the honor could thrive side by side. Days turned into weeks aboard the alien vessel, and an unspoken rhythm began to form between Lyanna and Princess Alia. Their sessions had grown more personal, moving beyond cold scientific inquiry into the realms of philosophy, emotion, and trust. Lyanna could feel the initial tension fading, replaced by a tentative bond, a curiosity shared not just for knowledge, but for understanding one another on a deeper level. Today, as they met in Ilya's quarters, the atmosphere was different. Ilya's usual guarded demeanor was softer, her gaze expectant. "Lyanna," she began, almost hesitantly, "I have been studying the concept of family among your kind. I understand that family shapes one's identity, one's sense of purpose, and one's values. But in our dominion, we are engineered for roles, not raised by family in the way that humans are. Tell me, what is it like to have a family that chooses to love you without any expectation?" Lyanna felt a pang of homesickness at the question, a longing she hadn't allowed herself to feel in weeks. She took a breath, considering her words carefully. "Family, for us, is a source of strength." The question hung in the air, heavy with the promise of countless other inquiries to come. Lyanna knew that each answer she gave would shape Ilya's perception of her world. But beneath her careful words, she also knew this was a chance to leave an impression, a spark that could light something in Ilya, something that might protect humanity. "Passion is how we connect with each other, with our past and future," Lyanna began, choosing her words carefully. "It's what drives us to explore, to reach beyond ourselves. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt because we want to understand our place in the universe. That curiosity, that drive, it's in our nature." Ilya's gaze grew distant, contemplative. To reach beyond oneself. Such a notion is foreign to us. Perhaps this is what I have longed to understand. She gestured toward the vast cosmos visible through the chamber's walls. "Show me, Lyanna. Show me the world through your eyes. And in turn, I will share mine." A strange feeling surged within Lyanna. Hope. Perhaps this young princess could become more than an observer of humanity. Perhaps she could be an ally, a bridge between their worlds. In that moment, an unspoken agreement passed between them. This journey was no longer just about survival. It was about understanding, about growth, and maybe, just maybe, about finding common ground between two vastly different civilizations. As the stars glittered beyond the ship, Lyanna felt the weight of her mission settle onto her shoulders. But this time, it was a weight she was willing to bear. Together, they would navigate this alien realm, each step an exploration into the unknown. And with every answer, every question, humanity's future grew a little clearer. The days aboard the alien ship quickly began to blur together. Lyanna found herself immersed in a routine of constant questions, observations, and challenges as Ilya's curiosity seemed boundless. Their conversations ranged from humanity's scientific achievements to the mysteries of human relationships, the arts, and morality. Yet Lyanna could sense that her responses were more than academic. Each word was measured, weighed by Ilya, as if she were trying to solve an impossible puzzle. Today, however, the dynamic changed. Ilya led Lyanna into a chamber that felt starkly different from the others, clinical and cold, with the scent of antiseptic mingling with the familiar metallic tang of the ship. The walls here were adorned with advanced medical and diagnostic instruments, some of which pulsed with a faint blue light. Lyanna's skin prickled as she looked around, feeling the weight of dozens of unseen eyes on her. "Today, Lyanna, I wish to understand the limits of human resilience," Ilya announced, her tone tinged with excitement. She gestured to a peculiar transparent pod situated in the center of the room. "This device will simulate some of the environments you humans would consider inhospitable." Lyanna's stomach twisted. "Are you asking me to enter?" "Yes," Ilya interrupted, her gaze almost eager. You speak often of humanity's adaptability, of your capacity to endure hardship. Show me, Lyanna. Prove to me that your species possesses the strength you claim. Lyanna hesitated, her instincts flaring with warning. She could refuse, of course. But what then? Ilya's perception of humanity was shaped by her, and she couldn't afford to appear weak. Taking a steadying breath, she stepped forward, forcing her expression into one of calm determination. "All right, princess," she said, holding her chin high. "Let's see what this device can teach us." A faint smile curved on Ilya's lips as she activated the pod, which emitted a soft hum as it opened. Lyanna climbed in, the interior smooth and slightly cool to the touch. As the lid closed over her, she found herself enveloped in a faintly shimmering blue light. Screens displayed environmental readings around her, detailing temperature fluctuations, pressure changes, and various other parameters that indicated she was about to experience an array of simulated alien environments. The first setting was an extreme desert simulation. The temperature around her spiked rapidly, reaching levels that would push any human to their limits. Lyanna could feel sweat beading on her forehead, her throat growing dry as the air became arid. She focused on her breathing, slowing her heartbeat, and steadying herself against the mounting heat. She trained for extreme environments on Earth. This was manageable. As if sensing her ease, the temperature plunged suddenly, and she was submerged in freezing cold. Frost began to form on the inside walls of the pod, and her skin prickled with a familiar numbness. Lyanna clenched her jaw, willing herself to endure as her fingers grew stiff, each breath crystallizing in the air before her. She drew on memories of frigid Arctic training, mentally preparing herself for the next wave of discomfort. It's where we first learn empathy, sacrifice, and connection. Our families help us become who we are, not because they expect something in return, but because they love us unconditionally. They're there for us, even when we're at our worst. Ilya looked at her intently, absorbing every word. So family shapes you through love rather than obligation. They support you, even when you fail. Yes, Lyanna replied with a gentle smile. In fact, some of the strongest bonds come from moments of failure. It's through hardship and vulnerability that we connect most deeply. Ilya looked away, her expression thoughtful, as though she was trying to reconcile this idea with her own experiences. In the Dominion, there is no concept of failure, only improvement. To fail is to be replaced, to be deemed unnecessary. It is a notion I have always feared. The sadness in Ilya's voice struck a chord in Lyanna. For the first time, she saw the immense pressure the princess carried, the weight of perfection, the fear of being deemed inadequate in a society that allowed no room for mistakes. Gently, she reached out, placing a comforting hand on Ilya's shoulder. "Perfection isn't everything, Ilya," she said softly. "Sometimes, our mistakes teach us more than our successes. They help us grow, find resilience, and more importantly, they show us who truly cares for us. Perfection is not love. It's the acceptance of imperfection that forms the bonds that last." Ilya turned her gaze back to Lyanna, a vulnerability in her eyes that had been hidden before. "Then perhaps it is time I learned to understand this acceptance. Perhaps I must learn to embrace imperfection, not just in myself, but in others." The moment was profound, a silent acknowledgement of change. But just as they seemed to reach a new level of understanding, an alert sounded throughout the chamber, a deep, resonant tone that made the walls seem to vibrate. Ilya tensed, her eyes narrowing with concern. "What's happening?" Lyanna asked, instinctively glancing around, her heart pounding with apprehension. Ilya straightened, her expression serious. "It's an alert from the outer sectors of the Dominion. A ship has approached our territory, a vessel from a species that has been hostile to our kind in the past." Lyanna's mind raced. "Hostile? You mean there are others besides humans, and the owner?" "Yes," Ilya confirmed, her voice steady but wary. "The Kralith, a warlike species that values conquest over diplomacy. They have long been at odds with the Dominion, It seems they are attempting to breach our borders. Lyanna felt a rush of adrenaline. This was no longer a theoretical lesson or a cultural exchange. She was now part of an unfolding conflict, a conflict that could potentially expose her vulnerabilities as a human among the Onar. Yet, as fear gripped her, a thought struck her. This might be a chance to prove humanity's worth in a new way, to show that they could be allies, not just subjects of curiosity. "Is there a way I can help?" she asked, her voice unwavering. Ilya looked at her, surprised but not dismissive. "Help? Lyanna, you are not trained for this. The Kralith are ruthless, unyielding. You wouldn't be safe." Lyanna met Ilya's gaze with determination. "You've seen how resilient humans can be. And I understand warfare and strategy, even if I'm not a soldier. If there's anything I can do to assist, I want to help." Ilya seemed to consider this, a flicker of admiration crossing her face. Perhaps your perspective could provide insight. "Come with me to the command chamber. I will introduce you to our advisors and see if there's a place where your skills may assist." The command chamber was a vast, domed space filled with holographic displays of tactical maps, star charts, and visual feeds from various locations. Onar officials, tall and regal in their imposing uniforms, turned as Ilya entered with Lyanna in tow. Their gazes ranged from curious to skeptical, but Ilya's presence silenced any objections. "Esteemed advisors," Ilya began, addressing the group with authority that belied her youth, "this is Dr. Lyanna Hayes of Earth. She is an expert in her field and may offer a unique perspective that could benefit our current situation." The advisors exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of intrigue and caution. One of them, a tall Onar with piercing emerald eyes, spoke. "With respect, Princess Ilya, how can this human provide insight into a matter of Dominion security?" Lyanna felt the weight of their doubt, but met their eyes steadily. "My perspective may be different, but that's exactly why it could be valuable. In my field, the best solutions often come from unexpected places. Sometimes, all it takes is a fresh approach." The emerald-eyed advisor seemed to consider her words before nodding. "Very well. The Kralith ship has positioned itself near our borders, but has not yet engaged. Our usual tactic would be to form a blockade, showing force to deter them. However, they have responded aggressively to such displays in the past." Lyanna studied the holographic display, the intricate models of ships and defensive patterns. An idea began to take shape in her mind, something she'd observed in human history, a tactic of subversion rather than confrontation. "What if you attempted a diversionary tactic instead?" she suggested. "You could draw their attention to a decoy, making them believe it's an opportunity for attack, then maneuver your ships to surround them from multiple directions. It's not a traditional show of force, but it might play into their overconfidence." Ilya's eyes lit up, a spark of excitement flashing across her face. "Yes, an unexpected move, one that uses their own aggression against them. This is an intriguing strategy, Dr. Hayes." The advisors murmured among themselves, clearly intrigued by the idea. After a brief discussion, the emerald-eyed advisor spoke again, a newfound respect in his tone. "We will implement this plan and monitor its effects." "Thank you, Dr. Hayes." Lyanna nodded, feeling both the weight of responsibility and a surge of pride. This was her chance to prove that humanity's value extended beyond survival, that they had the potential to be allies, equals even, in the Dominion's eyes. As the meeting concluded, Ilya leaned close to her, a smile breaking through her serious expression. "Lyanna, you continue to surprise me. Perhaps there is more to your kind than even I had imagined." Lyanna returned her smile, feeling the bond between them grow stronger. "We humans may be fragile in some ways, but we're also adaptable, creative, and capable of turning even the most unexpected situations to our advantage." They stood side by side, watching the holographic display as the plan unfolded, a silent testament to the alliance that was slowly forming between them. Together, they were beginning to reshape the course of two civilizations, one small but significant step at a time. As Lyanna's suggested strategy played out, the Kralith vessel responded exactly as anticipated. The diversionary tactic drew them toward the decoy, and within moments, the Dominion ships positioned themselves for an advantageous strike, surrounding the enemy craft on all sides. The command chamber buzzed with anticipation as holographic displays projected real-time footage of the unfolding confrontation. Lyanna watched with a tense, anxious pride as the plan unfolded. The Honor advisors murmured with approval, impressed by the ingenuity of the tactic. Lyanna felt a small surge of accomplishment. She had, in some way, proven humanity's capability. But as the Kralith vessel found itself outmaneuvered, an unexpected transmission signal flashed on the screen. Princess Ilia, the emerald-eyed advisor announced, his tone cautious. The Kralith captain is requesting communication. This is unprecedented. A murmur ran through the room. The Kralith were not known for diplomacy. Yet here they were, seemingly willing to engage in dialogue rather than conflict. Lyanna exchanged a glance with Ilia, a silent understanding passing between them. This was an opportunity, albeit a risky one. Ilia straightened, her voice resolute. Patch them through. I will address them personally. The transmission flickered to life, and the face of the Kralith captain appeared on the screen. His features were fierce, with sharp, angular lines, deep crimson skin, and eyes that glowed an unsettling shade of amber. His expression was one of controlled fury, barely masking the frustration of being outmaneuvered. Honor, princess, he growled, his voice dripping with contempt. You have proven cunning today. But know this, the Kralith do not submit to trickery. State your demands and release us, or face consequences. Ilia's gaze was steady, unyielding. Captain, we seek neither conquest nor control over your vessel. Our goal is only peace, but we will defend our borders and our people when provoked. Leave our territory, and this can end without further conflict. The Kralith captain's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering across his face. And why should we trust the word of an Onar? You are a people of dominance, just like us. Peace is not in your nature. Ilia hesitated, and Lyanna sensed the tension in the air, the silent, unspoken history between the Honor and the Kralith. This moment required more than the usual diplomatic language. It required a gesture, a vulnerability that the Kralith might not expect. Before she could second-guess herself, Lyanna stepped forward. Captain, she said, drawing the Kralith's intense gaze, I am Dr. Lyanna Hayes, a human from Earth. I stand here as a representative of my species, and I can assure you, we are people who value both strength and peace. The Honor have offered me trust, even though we come from different worlds. Perhaps it's time we all take a step toward understanding. The Kralith captain's eyes shifted, his gaze assessing her with a mix of intrigue and disbelief. A human, you say? I have heard tales of your species. Weak, emotional. Yet here you stand, aiding the Honor. Why? Lyanna met his gaze without wavering. Because strength is not just physical power, Captain. Strength is in the courage to seek peace, to create alliances rather than enemies. We may seem different, but that does not mean we cannot coexist. The captain seemed to mull over her words, his expression unreadable. Silence filled the chamber as everyone awaited his response. Then, with a grudging nod, he spoke. Very well, human. I shall heed your words, this time. We will withdraw, but know this. The Kralith do not forgive weakness. If your Honor allies betray us, there will be consequences. With a swift gesture, the captain ended the transmission, and the Kralith vessel began to retreat from Dominion space. The command chamber was quiet, the tension dissipating as everyone processed the unexpected resolution. Ilia turned to Lyanna, a glint of pride and relief in her gaze. You have done something remarkable today, Lyanna. You spoke of peace, of trust, and in doing so, you may have prevented a war. Lyanna let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. I just spoke from the heart. Sometimes, even the fiercest enemies can be reached if they sense authenticity. The emerald-eyed advisor stepped forward. His usual skepticism softened. Dr. Hayes, your presence here has been unexpected, but I believe you may have a place within our dominion as more than just a curiosity. Lyanna nodded, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and humility. Thank you. I only hope my actions today can be a foundation for more understanding between our worlds. As the advisors dispersed, Ilya motioned for Lyanna to follow her. They walked in silence through the ship's corridors, the pulsating lights casting soft shadows around them. After a while, Ilya spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Lyanna, today I learned something invaluable. Trust is not just an ideal. It is a choice, a decision to be vulnerable, even when the outcome is uncertain. For the first time, I feel as if I understand what you've been trying to teach me. Lyanna placed a gentle hand on Ilya's shoulder, her voice warm with sincerity. You showed tremendous courage, Ilya. Trust isn't easy, but it's what allows true connections to form, and it's what might one day unite us all. Ilya gave a small nod, her expression softened by a newfound understanding. You have changed my perspective, Lyanna. I no longer see you as merely a human or an outsider. I see you as a friend. Lyanna felt a rush of gratitude at the word friend. It was a simple title, but here, in the heart of an alien empire, it carried a profound significance. As they continued their walk, Ilya's mind seemed to wander, her gaze contemplative. Lyanna, there is a part of me that wonders if our worlds might someday unite in more than words, if perhaps together we could form something greater, an alliance of cultures, knowledge, and empathy. Lyanna's heart swelled with hope. I believe we can, Ilya. We just need to continue taking steps toward that vision, one choice at a time. They returned to Ilya's quarters, the stars beyond the transparent walls a vast, silent audience to their newfound understanding. Lyanna knew there would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome, and possibly even dangers she hadn't anticipated. But with Ilya by her side, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Their journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. In the days following the Kralith encounter, a quiet optimism began to ripple through the Onar Dominion. The successful withdrawal of their longtime adversaries had bolstered the trust and respect Lyanna shared with Ilya, and the atmosphere aboard the vessel shifted. For the first time, Lyanna sensed a subtle acceptance, a recognition that she was no longer just an outsider, but a contributing part of their journey toward peace and understanding. One evening, Ilya invited Lyanna to a special ceremony held within a grand, star-lit hall deep within the ship. The space was ethereal, with walls that seemed to reflect the cosmos beyond, creating the illusion of standing within a field of stars. Glowing orbs floated gently above, illuminating the hall in a warm celestial light. Lyanna's breath caught at the sheer beauty of it, but she sensed a deeper purpose here. This is a rare ritual, Lyanna, Ilya explained softly. It is known as the Binding Ceremony, a gathering to honor and formalize alliances, and to remember those who have sought peace over war. Lyanna felt a quiet reverence settle over her. She understood that being invited to this ceremony was an honor, one that signified more than just curiosity on the part of the owner. It was a gesture of respect, of genuine kinship. She glanced at Ilya, whose expression was thoughtful and solemn, her gaze fixed on the pulsing orbs above. Tonight, Ilya continued, we will honor you as an ally of the Dominion, not only for your actions, but for the vision of unity you've inspired within us. As the ceremony began, Ilya took her place at the center, and Lyanna was led beside her by an elder advisor. A soft, harmonious chant filled the hall, resonating through the walls and echoing like a melody from some ancient time. The orbs of light began to move in a slow, mesmerizing dance above them, casting shifting shadows across their faces. One of the elder advisors stepped forward, addressing the gathering. In the presence of stars, We honor those who have chosen the path of understanding, who dare to trust even amidst uncertainty. Today, we recognize Dr. Lyanna Hayes of Earth, who has shown that wisdom knows no borders and that even the unknown can bring light. The elder turned to Lyanna, her gaze filled with a deep, unspoken respect. Lyanna Hayes, do you accept this alliance with our dominion, to stand as a bridge between our worlds, to advocate for peace in times of discord? Lyanna took a steadying breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her. Yes, she replied, her voice firm. I accept this alliance, and I promise to uphold it with honor. A subtle cheer rose from the gathering, and the orbs above pulsed brighter, casting a warm glow over the room. Lyanna felt a surge of emotion, a blend of pride, hope, and a sense of belonging she hadn't anticipated. Here, in this alien vessel surrounded by beings she once considered vastly different, she felt something close to home. As the ceremony concluded, Ilya placed a hand over her heart in a gesture of solidarity. Thank you, Lyanna. This alliance would not have been possible without you. Lyanna smiled, feeling the bond between them solidify in a way that was beyond words. But as the two of them began to walk out, a low, urgent chime filled the air, and a message flashed on a nearby display screen. Distress signal detected. Origin: Sector VX9. Civilian transport under attack. The serene atmosphere was instantly replaced by tense alertness. Ilya turned to the elder advisor, her voice sharp. Is it the Krylith? The elder shook his head, his expression grim. No, it's another faction. The Nautilus, a nomadic species known for raiding isolated vessels. They often target the weak, the unprotected. But this attack is close, too close to our borders. Lyanna felt a chill run down her spine. The Nautilus were unfamiliar to her, but the mention of raiders brought a flood of images. Pirates, ruthless and unpredictable, taking advantage of those less equipped to defend themselves. Her instincts kicked in. Is there a way we can help them? Ilya nodded, her expression resolute. We must. Our alliance means nothing if we do not protect those who cannot protect themselves. Prepare a rescue vessel and bring me the security team. She turned to Lyanna, her eyes filled with determination. Would you join us, Lyanna? Your insights may once again prove invaluable. Without hesitation, Lyanna nodded. Yes, of course. Let's go. Within moments, they were aboard a sleek Onar rescue vessel, moving swiftly toward the coordinates of the distress signal. The atmosphere on board was tense but focused, the crew operating with a calm efficiency that was impressive. Lyanna found herself in awe of their readiness, their collective purpose as they prepared to face an unknown threat. As they neared the location, a visual feed appeared on the main screen, revealing a battered civilian transport ship, its hull scorched and barely holding together. Several smaller predatory ships circled it like vultures, firing sporadic shots to weaken its defenses further. On our vessel came a harsh voice over the comms, likely from one of the Nautilus raiders. This does not concern you. Withdraw, or you'll share their fate. Ilya's expression hardened. She activated the comms, her voice resonant with authority. This is Princess Ilya of the Onar Dominion. Cease your attack immediately and vacate our territory. If you refuse, we will defend these civilians by any means necessary. The raiders laughed, a sound that echoed with disdain. A princess. You think titles scare us? Very well. Come, show us what you're made of. Without hesitation, the Nautilus vessels began to fire, and the Honor crew sprang into action, maneuvering with a precision that left Lyanna awestruck. But the raiders were relentless, more numerous than anticipated. The Dominion vessel was holding its own, but it was clear that this would not be an easy battle. Lyanna leaned toward Ilya, a plan forming in her mind. What if we used the same tactic as before, a diversion? If we send a small decoy, it might draw some of them away, giving us a chance to reach the civilian ship and evacuate the crew. Ilya nodded, her gaze fierce. It's a risk, but a calculated one. Let's implement it. The command was given, and a small decoy drone was deployed, emitting signals that mimicked the Dominion vessel. True to their nature, several of the Maluk ships pursued it, giving the Honor team a window to maneuver closer to the civilian transport. Prepare to engage docking clamps, Ilya commanded, her focus unbreakable. The ship lurched as they made contact, and a team of Honor security officers quickly boarded the transport to evacuate the civilians. Within moments, the civilians, scared but unharmed, were safely aboard the Dominion vessel. But as the docking clamps retracted, a Nuluk ship broke formation. Heading straight for them, weapons charged, alarms blared, and the crew braced for impact. Just before the raider could strike, Ilya issued a swift command, releasing a burst of concentrated energy that hit the Nuluk ship's propulsion system, sending it spiraling off course. "Get us out of here," she ordered, and the ship accelerated, leaving the remaining raiders behind. As the threat faded and the civilian passengers expressed their gratitude, Lyanna felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She looked at Ilya, who seemed equally moved by the experience. "We protected them," Lyanna murmured, the reality of their success settling over her. "Together." Ilya nodded, a soft smile on her lips. "Yes, and perhaps this is only the beginning. If we continue down this path, maybe our worlds can forge a legacy of unity and protection." They exchanged a look of understanding, an alliance no longer bound by words alone, but by shared purpose and action. Their journey had transformed from one of mere understanding to one of solidarity, a promise of what their worlds could accomplish, side by side. As the Honor vessel returned to their territory, Lyanna and Ilya were met with quiet respect from the crew and civilians alike. The success of their mission had shifted something profound. A spark of hope and pride now glowed in each person's eyes. Lyanna felt it too, a tangible sense that her journey among the Honor had become something more than a diplomatic exchange. It was now a shared vision for a future they could build together. In the following days, Lyanna spent countless hours with Ilya and the Dominion Council, discussing potential frameworks for peace and cooperation. Their conversations expanded from simple cultural exchanges to practical strategies for diplomacy, shared defense, and trade. Lyanna's human perspective added valuable depth to their plans, and her insights became increasingly sought after. But one evening, as Lyanna and Ilya sat by a viewport, watching a distant nebula unfold its radiant colors against the darkness, a question lingered in Lyanna's mind, a question that carried both excitement and a heavy dose of sadness. "Ilya," she began, her voice tentative, "there will come a time when I have to return to Earth. My people need to know about this alliance, about the potential that exists between our worlds. They need to know that we are not alone." Ilya's expression softened, her gaze filled with a mix of understanding and quiet sorrow. "Yes, I know. Your presence here has always been temporary, yet I've come to realize how important you are. To us, to me." The silence that followed was thick with the unspoken bond they'd formed, a friendship that had transcended the vast differences between their species. For the first time, Ilya looked truly vulnerable, as if she was letting go of something precious. "Lyanna," she continued, "before you leave, I want to ask one last thing of you." "Anything," Lyanna replied, her voice barely a whisper. Ilya turned to her, a glint of determination in her eyes. "When you return to Earth, speak of us not as conquerors, nor as allies bound by necessity, but as partners in exploration, as friends. Let humanity know that, in the stars, they have a place with us if they choose it." Lyanna nodded, a sense of purpose swelling in her chest. "I promise, Ilya. I'll make sure humanity knows that our paths can be shared, that our future doesn't have to be separate or divided." With a final, solemn glance, Ilya placed a small object in Lyanna's hand, a crystal that pulsed faintly with an inner light. "This is a piece of our technology, encoded with all that we've learned together, a record of our journey. When you return to Earth, use this to show them our truth, to guide them toward understanding." Lyanna felt the weight of the crystal, sensing the vast significance it held. It was a symbol of trust, of the alliance they'd worked so hard to build. The day of her departure arrived sooner than she'd anticipated. Standing in the ship's docking bay, Lyanna was met by a small gathering of Honor advisors, crew members, and Ilya herself. Each person offered her a nod of respect, and Lyanna returned the gesture, feeling a deep, bittersweet ache in her heart. These aliens, once strangers, had become allies, friends, and teachers. She would carry their stories and their lessons with her always. As Lyanna prepared to board the vessel that would take her back to Earth, Ilya approached her one last time. "Lyanna," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "know that you will always be welcome among us. You are not only a friend to me, but to our people." Lyanna's eyes shone with unshed tears. She reached out, clasping Ilya's hand firmly. "Thank you, Ilya, for everything. Our worlds are more connected than ever, and it's all because of you." With a final, lingering glance, Lyanna stepped onto the vessel. The doors closed, and she felt the quiet hum of engines begin as they set course for Earth. Her mind was a whirlwind of memories, of images of Ilya and the Onar Dominion, of the friendships forged and the lessons learned. She looked down at the crystal in her hand, its faint light a reminder of the stars she was leaving behind, and the promises she intended to keep. As the ship accelerated, Earth came into view, a familiar yet distant sphere against the black expanse. She knew that her journey was far from over. She had returned not just with knowledge, but with a purpose, a vision of unity, a hope for a future where humanity could stand alongside the Honor and countless other species as partners in an interstellar community. The transmission to Earth began as she entered the atmosphere. With steady conviction, Lyanna spoke her first words, her voice clear and filled with the weight of her mission. "Earth, this is Dr. Lyanna Hayes. I have returned with a message from the stars, a message of friendship, of alliance, and of hope. We are not alone, and the universe is ready to welcome us if we are brave enough to reach out and trust." Her words echoed across frequencies, broadcast to every corner of the globe. Humanity listened, captivated, as she shared her journey, her encounter with the Onar Dominion, and her promise of a future built on understanding and unity. As she spoke, the crystal in her hand pulsed gently, its light spreading outward as if to touch everyone listening, a silent promise from the Onar to Earth. In that moment, humanity took its first step into a larger universe, and somewhere among the stars, Lyanna knew Ilya was watching, waiting for the day when they would meet again, not as strangers, but as allies bound by a shared dream. Together, they had redefined what it meant to be human and what it meant to be Honor. And for the first time in history, both species looked to the future with hope, knowing that in the vastness of space, they were no longer alone.